All right, friends, this is day 8 of our Esther plan, and today we're going to be looking at chapter 5, verses 9 through 14, so the end of chapter 5. And what we're going to go after today is a little look at two of the characters that are in this part of the story, and then one kind of character that's really a conglomeration of people, kind of the way that a crowd responds. So I'm going to encourage you to read it before we talk. The reading's short today, and it's really pretty straightforward, but there are a few kind of more nuanced things underneath that I want to make sure that we see. Okay, first person I want to look at is Mordecai. So here's what happens right at the beginning. And Haman went out that day joyful and glad of heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he neither rose nor trembled before him, he was filled with wrath against Mordecai. So we'll talk about Haman in just a second. Let's look at what Mordecai does here. What is it that makes Haman so upset? It is that Mordecai neither rose nor trembled before him. Again, it's easy to pass over, but it's something that really stuck out to me as I was reading through it this time. He neither rose nor trembled. So often what... I mean, I'll use kind of an extreme word here, but I think that it's true. What evil wants in our lives, but it can also be things that aren't just like straight up evil, but just negative influences in our lives, is that they want us to either revere them or fear them. And Mordecai here, he's not falling for either of those traps from Haman. He doesn't revere him the way that other people, at least ostensibly, do. And he doesn't fear him the way that other people do either. I know so often, again, the way that evil tries to kind of like get us in its clutches is either by being super shiny and appealing, or by like threats that if you don't do this, or you don't think this way, or say these things, or whatever, that you know, you'll be ostracized or outcast or whatever it is. That evil wants us to either revere it or to fear it. And Mordecai doesn't fall into that trap. Presumably because Mordecai is rooted in something larger than Haman. See, if we are rooted in our belief that God is for us, that God works everything together for the good of those who love him, that God is more powerful than any evil in the world, then we neither have to revere nor fear the evil that's around us. That's something that I'm learning from Mordecai here. What about from Haman? I mean, Haman is the more negative example. Well, in what I read just a minute ago, you see one of the things that Haman really struggles with. Things are actually going pretty well for Haman. He has a high position. He's got a lot of good things in his life. But yet, the fact that one person won't revere or fear him causes him to lose his mind. How often do we have, like, just our lives are pretty good, but because we don't have one thing, it causes us to freak out, or maybe not to freak out like Haman did, at least, but at least to not be content. I'm learning that from Haman, that I need to pay attention to that. It's one of the things that causes me to stumble in living a life of joy, a life of peace, a life of satisfaction. It's one of the things that causes me to stumble, the fact that I got my eyes on what I don't have. We see that again in verse 13. Yet all this is worth nothing to me, Haman says, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. I mean, hey, everything I have is worth nothing because of this one person. I know that's a way that I can stumble also. And then lastly is, look at the crowd here, okay? Then his wife, Zeresh, and all his friends said to him, let a gallows 50 cubits high be made, and in the morning tell the king to have Mordecai hanged upon it. Then go joyfully to the king to the feast. Then go joyfully with the king to the feast. This pleased Haman, and he had the gallows made. So he tells his wife and his friends about this that he's dealing with. And their advice is to hang Mordecai. Yeah, I deal with this sometimes as a teacher or as a preacher. And a lot of times what I am tempted to do is just present teachings or present messages that just, the best way to put it maybe is that they just tickle the ears. They're just going to tell people what they want to hear. It's maybe funny, it's entertaining, it's just affirming. When the reality is that a lot of times what the scripture leads me towards is a harder message that maybe doesn't tickle the ears, maybe exactly the opposite of what we want to hear. I experienced that not just with teaching and preaching, but in one-on-one conversations also, which I know that you do as well. The temptation is to always want to make our friends feel better. The reality is sometimes we actually need to say things to our friends that might not make them feel better, that actually might cause them to reflect, might actually cause them to sometimes be irked or irritated, maybe even sometimes upset with us. Are we the crowd that's around Haman? We are just saying things that tickle people's ears? Or are we willing to tell them the truth? And the people that we have around us, how do we respond when people tell us the truth? Or do we just want people tickling our ears? So there's a few things, again, just these handful of verses that are really speaking to me, that I'm really learning from, and that I hope that you're learning from also. There's kind of the surface level, which is so important, that drives the story forward. When we pause and we reflect, there are also things like this as well. So God bless you, friends. Keep up with your reading. We're about halfway through, and I hope that this is a blessing to you, this online study. I know that it's a blessing to me. God bless you, and I'll see you next time.